welcome to the show. Thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you, Shaili.
It's difficult to get you out on a weekday, but I think we've managed. It has a lot to do with golf, I guess.
Exactly, and what more beautiful place to be than here at the Oxford Golf and Country Club.
I know.
Beautiful course and a beautiful day for golf.
Indeed so. How have things been in terms of the recovery curve? Because, that determines how much golf you might have played.
Well, that's right. Well, I guess one of the good things is that I'm here in India. For a lot of my colleagues who are in London and New York, it's a very difficult time for them at the present time. There is very much a two-speed economy in the world at the moment, and in the Western countries, they're finding it very difficult. Whereas here in India, well, it's about, how do you control the growth? Our expectation is, be 8% plus growth in GDP for at least the next 5 years. Very, very different to the world that people are looking at from London and from New York.
What is it that HSBC, you think, has done for itself in the Indian context, given that most wanted to use the bad patch or the crisis to invest, to look ahead, to make use of it?
Well, certainly for a while there we consolidated our operations. We were hit hard on the unsecured retail assets, and so we had to fix that. And having done that, well, for us, it's just been growth. And it's been great to see the loan growth and the demand in credit increasing. And for us, we very much want to be part of the growth story of India, well, not just for the next year, but for the next 10 to 20 years.
And how has it been for Stuart Davies to live in India, be in India, and, be almost Indian?
Well, it's certainly been an amazing transition. I arrived in April of last year, and it's hard to believe today that when I arrived, the Sensex was less than 9,000, and then the election occurred, and well, from there it's just been one way, and that's upward. That's
upward, right? Is that how your golf has been in India as well, or did you have to take a break?
Well, my golf has been a little bit erratic. I guess a little bit like India. Sometimes it's fantastic. At other times it's chaotic.
How long have you been playing, Stuart?
Well, I first played golf when I was 18, but unfortunately I played a lot of sport, and so I didn't have enough time to play golf, which was a little bit unfortunate. So I didn't really start playing it more seriously until about 12 or 15 years ago.
And so far, what sport were you so interested in? Tennis, or was it surfing in Australia, I'm guessing?
Oh, when I grew up, I played basketball, I played cricket, I played baseball. Played a game called Australian Rules Football, which people may not be familiar with here. And that was my major sport, and that's a very rough and high-contact sport, which I used to play when I was younger.
Wow.
And I have a few injuries as a result of playing that, but it was great fun.
That's a bit like business these days. That's something that the banking sector seemed to always suggest that it has overcome. Do you think that the bounce back in the banking sector too soon?
Well, certainly here in India, there was really hardly a downturn for the banking industry. During the global downturn, the banks were quite resilient here, and I think that's as a result of the fact that there was still high growth here. The banking industry was well regulated. And I think generally the lending was prudent. So as a result, the Indian banks have done well, which is very different from some of the overseas banks.
I know. We're going to shortly ask you to remove your Indian banking cap and talk about the global story in just a bit. So Stuart's on the fairway already, but he has a great story to tell us of the HSBC Championship in Shanghai. You were up there with the pros, Rory McIlroy.
Well, that's right. I was fortunate enough that because we were one of the sponsors, I followed Rory McIlroy for the last 7 holes, and I was literally 10 metres behind him walking down the fairway.
Wow.
And he was on a roll. He came from nowhere, and if he hadn't put his drive in the rough on the last hole, he might have challenged to actually win the tournament. But what amazed me about him, and it's, I guess, one of the learnings of golf, he's not very tall, and he's nowhere near as big as I am.
I know, yeah.
But the power that he generates and just the timing he has of the ball, I guess it just shows you don't have to be big and you don't have to be strong, you just have to have the timing. And he just hits the ball so far. It was fantastic to watch.
That's right. Though I must admit that after the Ryder Cup, my personal favourite is Graham McDowell, and looks like there's a report every day that he could well be challenging the number 1 position, like some of the others. But who's your favourite player? Rory, one of them, but others?
Rory's tremendous. Despite what happens, one can't help but admire Tiger Woods.
I know, that's true.
You know, to see him, he was playing in the tournament as well, and just the power he generates. He's just a fantastic player. And Phil Mickelson was playing in the same tournament, and just wonderful players. But I guess I really enjoyed Ernie Els because having a little bit of a chat with him.
And he's a big guy, tall. You can look into his eyes and talk to him.
I was chatting to him after the 3rd round, and he was about seven shots behind Mickelson. And I said, "How did you play?" And he said, I'm hitting the ball really well. I'm just not getting the score there. And I like to say I gave him a little bit of advice because he came out the next day and he almost won the tournament.
Won the tournament. What was the one advice that you gave to the Indian banking, at HSBC the day you arrived as the new man on the block here?
Well, I think it was a question of we had part of our business going very well. Our global banking and markets is very strong. So it was making sure that we didn't lose momentum there. We've got a wonderful customer base. So it's just making sure that everyone goes in the same direction. And if we do that, then success will naturally follow.
Great. There'll be much more to talk to Stuart about, but we're going to get closer to the green and catch up with him.
Well, our idea is to actually attack the market on a number of fronts. We want to continue with our global markets business, our treasury business, which has been a tremendous success for us and really plays to our strengths as an international bank. The bunker.
So tell us a little bit about yourself, Stuart. Where did you grow up and how did HSBC happen to Stuart Davies?
Well, I actually grew up in Adelaide, and that's where I went to school and I went to university. And I graduated in law and then got admitted to the bar. And then shortly thereafter I joined what in those days was called a merchant bank. It was a merchant bank in Adelaide. And I discovered that I enjoyed finance more than I enjoyed the law.
Okay.
And then they moved me to Sydney, and shortly thereafter I joined the investment banking arm of HSBC. It was then called Wardley.
So you're a pro-bred HSBC man.
So I joined HSBC in 1981.
So you said you liked finance more than law. I mean, I'm guessing you can make equally good money in both. So what took you towards the finance side of the story?
Well, I guess it was actually an event that actually occurred when I was in Adelaide. I joined the bank I was with, and we used the best lawyers in Adelaide. And I used to use the number one commercial lawyer in Adelaide, and I went to his office because I was unhappy with some advice he'd given. And I was waiting in the waiting area, and one of my friends I went through university with saw me sitting there and just assumed I was coming for a job interview. And he said, "Oh, who are you seeing?" And I said, "I'm seeing Michael Astley." And he said, "You're seeing Mr. Astley?" Like, he's not even allowed to talk to Mr. Astley. And it suddenly dawned upon me that it's much more fun instructing someone than being instructed. And so
better to learn that early in life.
I decided then that financing was for me, and certainly the legal training has been a tremendous benefit, both in terms of logical thought as well as the corporate law. I've been a banker ever since.
I'd like to ask you, Stuart, when you say it becomes much a part of business, and I know HSBC does hold golf championships every now and then, have you actually truly as a banker struck a deal on the course?
Well, part of it's about developing relationships, and one I always remember was actually in Taiwan, and one of my corporate banking guys said he wants to put two of his customers together. So he said, they both like golf, let's take them out for golf. And it was fascinating, because for the first 17 holes, they were quite respectful to each other and just had general chit-chat. They came to the 18th hole because one was a retailer who needed property sites. The other had a business that had a lot of property sites. Came to the 18th hole, and they did a deal walking down the 18th hole. And what they did, for the first 17 holes, it was all about getting an understanding of each other. Did they trust them? Would they work together? And part of it was golf.
And on the 18th hole, they would actually spell out the plan of action.
They walked down there and they stopped halfway down, and it was just the two of them, and we had to stand aside. And they got there, and I said to one of them, the retailer at the end, "How did you go?" And he said, "Well, we got to the broad parameters of the deal." And they actually went on and did a joint venture together.
Indeed. And you were the banker, did the same?
They did it after I left Taiwan, but we funded it as well.
Fantastic.
But it was interesting the way that the dynamics between the two individuals during the first part of the golf round. They didn't talk about business at all, but you could see that they were just getting an understanding of each other to see whether they could work together, whether they trusted each other. It was very interesting.
And trust is a very important word in their industry, isn't it?
Yes, absolutely.
Has that come back completely?
Look, I think that's probably the downturn is a time when trust is tested.
Yes.
And that's when you find out, as a banker, whether you can trust your customers, and also as customers, whether you can trust your bank. And so I think there will be examples of where people can say that the trust was reinforced during that period of time. And there'll be others who say it was broken. And
so everybody knows who's their real friend. Okay.
Exactly. Good putt. Wow.
Okay, it's not that good.
There we are. Not a good three, but a three. Oh, nice putt.
Stuart, that's gone to the village. Well, what a view this is at the Oxford Country Club course in Pune, just outside Pune. It makes for a great outing for us from out of Mumbai, straight for a 2-hour drive. How do you think the next 5 years are going to be for HSBC here?
Well, I think it's going to be quite an exciting time. I'm very confident that India is going to grow at 8% real growth in GDP for at least the next 5 years. So just that momentum is going to create huge opportunities for banking.
What do you think is then going to be the real driver for HSBC when you look at various segments, commercial banking, investment banking, capital raising, something Indian conglomerates are so big on?
Well, our idea is to actually attack the market on a number of fronts. We want to continue with our